Well, Jordan Montgomery made his return to the mound and gave the Diamondbacks 5 solid innings in a win over the Royals. We have more on that and Ketel mashing right now. Let's go. We are home, we are back, and ski to you all. Welcome into another edition of the PHNX Diamondbacks podcast, right here at PHNX Diamondbacks, or PHNX Studios, I should say. It's good to be home.
We don't know where we are.
We don't know what day it is. We have no idea of anything, but we do know that's the win music, and that means the Diamondbacks get the W tonight against the Kansas City Royals, winning by 6-2. Of course, the big story is that Jordan Montgomery made his return to the mound and gave Torey Lovullo 5 solid innings in this win. We're going to pick it apart, and this guy is probably going to get way too negative about it, but we are so glad to have you guys here, and we're so glad to be discussing a win. My name, of course, is Derek Montia, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX, and this guy next to me, of course, is your vice mayor and your thunderstick, the one and only Jesse Friedman. Of course, we did talk about Jordan Montgomery here, but comes back. Of course, we did know that he was going to have kind of a short outing in his return from his injury, but of course, big night for him as he went out there and did, more of what we expected to see out of him this season tonight.
5 innings, 1 run. Yeah, I mean, on 67 pitches, he was efficient, especially on a day where, as you said, the pitch count wasn't going to be real high for him. I think I don't know if 67 that's probably not the exact number they had in mind, but he only threw 56 pitches in his last game before making this start. So you figured it was going to be probably 70, 75 tops in a game like this. So he was able to give the D-backs 5 innings. He was able to come away with a win. We'll get into more of the specifics of his outing and how I'm not sure that the trajectory of his season necessarily changed today. I still have some questions on my end.
I hate you
I'm gonna do the thing that I'm known for doing on this show, which is being somewhat realistic at times. But he was
realistic,
good, Derek.
He said realistic. You guys know what that means. That's a code word for negative Nancy over here. But let's go with it. Let's just pick it apart. Let's start there because on the surface, you would look at Jordan Montgomery's night, and beside the fact that he didn't go very long, it would be a pretty damn good night from any major league pitcher, right? And sometimes you understand, like even on an outing like this from anybody, that maybe their pitch count just got driven up. They couldn't stay out in the game very long, but still, it much better performance than we've seen out of him. We've seen him have a good, a few good performances like this. So I understand you wanting everybody to pause on the is Jordan Montgomery back question, but let's go with it. What did you notice that would suggest otherwise?
Yeah. So I think that he was better today than he's been in most starts this season. I mean, I'm not here to discredit at all, that Montgomery pitched a pretty decent game, but there are still like some of the concerns that I had for him going into today. I wouldn't say I saw anything today that looked all that different. One of the biggest issues that Montgomery has had this season is just not generating enough swing and miss, not getting enough strikeouts. And
he didn't get a lot of.
He had 2 strikeouts today, and he only generated 8 whiffs. Like it wasn't like he was fooling Royals hitters left and right. I thought that Royals hitters looked pretty comfortable in the box, honestly, throughout a lot of the at bats. There were a lot of situations where he got a little bit behind in the count and was able to generate some soft contact in some situations, but there was also some hard contact, some balls that found gloves as well. It wasn't, I'm not saying this wasn't a step in the right direction for Montgomery. I think it certainly was, but some of those concerns that we had about him, I still kind of have those concerns coming out of this outing. It's going to be really hard for him to be successful in a sustainable way if he's still hovering around the 5-6 Ks per 9 that we've seen from him this season. That's not the pitcher that he's been in the past. And at some point you'd like to see him look a little bit more like that guy.
Meanwhile, his line: 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. 67 pitches. Feels like he was pretty efficient. Feels like he could have given them more, but understandable to turn it over to the bullpen. Bryce Jarvis did a great job out of the bullpen. Bullpen did a great job tonight overall. But of course, Jesse, somebody had to struggle. And especially in the ninth inning. I mean, I know it didn't run off the rails because the Diamondbacks offense did a great job of giving them the run support, but you had 2 solid innings from Bryce Jarvis after that. Joe Mantiply had 2/3 of an inning. Ryan Thompson came in with the wrong color glove, and he got a third of an inning pitch there.
Yeah.
What was that all about, though? Like, we had some discussion. Like, first we thought maybe it was the color because it seemed to very much match the Diamondbacks jersey. But then there seems to be a rule about it matching the color of the ball, so the ball or the glove can't be white or a light gray color, which Ryan Thompson's glove appeared to be. And I don't know, like Ryan Thompson, he knows. Like that's a weird thing to not know, right? Like I would think that would be something that pitchers would commonly know.
Yeah, this is, I'm not 100% sure exactly what was going on there. I know on the broadcast, they were speculating that his glove was too close to the color of the Diamondbacks jerseys. I'm not sure that's what was happening there. I think it also could have been that the glove was too close to just the color of the baseball, and they want to make sure that there's, that from a hitter's perspective, it's hard enough to see the baseball. The last thing you need is kind of the glove and the ball sort of blending together.
Right. But see, Piece of Yoshi makes the best point, and he is what he is where I was when we came back from the commercial break, and we see an umpire, and we see Torey, and we see Ryan Thompson's glove, like all in the mix, and Torey has Ryan Thompson's glove, and he's walking off the mound with it. And of course, yes, like Piece of Yoshi said, Ryan Thompson, I've watched Edwin Diaz get suspended for 10 games. You cannot scare me like this, especially with an arm that we need so much out of the bullpen. An arm that tried to RKO me, by the way, in Chicago, unsuccessfully, I would like to say. But again, a third of innings pitch for Ryan Thompson. He did his job. But then Kevin Ginkel in the ninth just struggled a little bit. It's not enough to make me like panic, but it's enough to just make me kind of shake my head at the fact that, we can never have nice things. Even the guy that's been good gets in there and, kind of has been consistent lately, struggled when being thrown in there in the ninth inning of a game that was, fairly in hand. The Diamondbacks were up 6-1 at that point. I
mean, Ginkel's been so good lately that I don't think you're all that worried about him giving up one run.
Right.
He still has a 2.64 ERA. He's been probably the D-backs' most reliable reliever here over the last month or so.
Yeah.
We've seen some of the other guys kind of take a step back. Going back to the Thompson incident, there is a rule in the MLB rulebook about this. This is from an article over on MLB.com from 2017 where they're discussing a similar incident. This is involving Mike Clevenger and a glove situation that he had a few years back.
You never want to be in the same discussion as Mike Clevenger.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. But it says the pitcher's glove may not, exclusive of piping, be white, gray, nor in the judgment of an umpire distracting in any manner. So I guess this glove was gray. It was kind of a darker gray. But it was gray, so I think that's all that the issue was there. So
Benjamin Hunley in the chat says Bryce Jarvis should get more looks in high leverage situations. I agree. Right now,
I just don't understand Bryce Jarvis, Derek. I'm being totally honest. The man at this point, I mean, you have to acknowledge the run prevention ability that he has shown this year. He has a 3.34 ERA. After throwing 2 scoreless innings today. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
At the same time, as I'm sure all of you are expecting from me, the baseball nerd side of the equation.
He leads the league in walks or something. He
doesn't lead the league in walks, but he has 36 strikeouts to 32 walks.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to have like at least twice as many strikeouts as you do walks. Bryce Jarvis has basically the same number of strikeouts and walks this season, and somehow he still had quite a bit of success anyway. He's a 1.41 whip. There've been a lot of traffic on the bases against him, but he has shown kind of this uncanny ability to pitch out of tricky situations. So maybe people do want to see him more in higher leverage situations. I guess I could understand that.
I think the idea is that everybody wants to see anybody that's pitching well in high leverage situations until they're in there, and we're seeing them do what happened to Justin Martinez. And that's not very fair because he was placed in a situation where it was his 3rd day in a row.
Yeah, that was tricky.
He already had a kind of a fairly sketchy outing there on Friday against the Cubs. So like, I still don't understand going to Justin Martinez there other than, he probably said he wanted to go in. Like sometimes Torey talks to the guys, and based on the way they react, the way they respond, they talk about how they're feeling and if they're ready to go out there. Justin Martinez strikes me as the kind of guy that stays ready and is always ready, and probably tells Torey he's never feels down and he's always ready to go. So
yeah,
that might have been what played into that. But you also just have the fact that the bullpen's getting used a lot, and that's the downside here, is that Jordan Montgomery gave him 5 innings, but you still putting a lot on the bullpen today. But they reacted well, and they had a good lead thanks to the offense. Diamondbacks had bases loaded with nobody out to start the game, and that was a great way to start the day. Christian Walker gets the sac fly, and then Gabriel Moreno with the 2-out, 2-run single to make it 3-0. And then Ketel's, I guess, what would you call that? The scraper home run. I mean, one that looked very foul on TV, but then ended up being very fair, and Ketel knew it. Ketel absolutely knew it. That was my favorite part of that.
Yeah, it was pretty funny to see Ketel just very confidently rounding the bases.
While everyone else was having discussions.
Well, as the umpire had called the ball foul. Yeah, like he said that it was foul. And Ketel just kept on, going around the bases and kind of doing his thing. And sure enough, it was a home run. D-backs TV crew did a great job kind of tracking the ball, giving us a more zoomed in angle later in the game, and sure enough, you could see it just bounced right off of the right field foul pole. And this is a left-handed Ketel Marte, Derek.
Not even super powered right-handed.
This is not super power right-handed Ketel. Yeah. This was left-handed Ketel hitting the ball 111 miles an hour off the bat. He continues to be very, very good for this Diamondbacks team, and is very much, in my book, in the MVP conversation, at least as of right now.
Right now, he sits at 21 home runs this season, 61 RBI. His batting average is 294. On-base percentage is 364, and his OPS is 885. So, yeah, that tracks. Not to mention his defense and the cinch robe that he wore on the red cinch robe jacket. I still can't get over how fly that was. But anyway, go watch our videos, by the way, from Texas and Chicago. We have a lot of stuff out there on the YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to go check out all the fun we had, especially Jesse's, I guess, reviews of stadiums and food that you ate out there. I don't know if you really want to call it that or not, but he had some great takes, so make sure to check that out. But getting back to Ketel Marte, of course, he is our king snake for tonight. Ketel Marte was 2 for 3, with 3 runs scored, that big home run, 2 RBIs, 1 walk. Great night for Ketel. Ketel is, like Sean says here in the chat, Ketel is a vibe.
Yeah, it's hard to overstate the importance of Ketel Marte for this baseball team this year. I mean, he has not only been very, very good, but he's been very, very good at a time when other players haven't been, right? Specifically, Corbin Carroll obviously struggling in the ways that he has, and Christian Walker having what has really become a pretty normal season for him. Walker hasn't been, extraordinarily fantastic or bad by any means. Walker has been, perfectly fine for the D-backs this season, but Ketel has really kind of taken over as the superstar on this baseball team. I mean, he is the reason that the Diamondbacks are still in a pretty decent spot here after 102 games, despite the injuries and Corbin struggles and whatnot. He's been just so huge for this team.
Some great questions here. Geek Martinez said, should we potentially look to trade Randall up to open up a spot for De Los Santos? It's hard not to want De Los Santos up here, but no, you cannot have Randall Grichuk yet. But we are going to talk about some potential trade targets for this team, and it will be interesting who the Diamondbacks are willing to part ways with when that time comes. But we should see them making some moves to improve this team, especially after Mike Hazen's comments after you spoke to him in Chicago.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the trade deadline stuff a little bit later. I'm excited to jump into it. We are officially a week away from the MLB trade deadline. It is not on August 1st this season. It is on July 30th. It's a little bit earlier.
Sooner.
I mean, last year, Derek, we were starting our trade deadline conversations. I think we probably started them a lot earlier because the D-backs were so obviously going to be buyers. They were so far above 500 as the calendar turned over to July that, we spent a whole lot of time digging into various options for them. We talked about the Diamondbacks trading for Shohei Ohtani. We talked about them trading for a lot of other big names as well. I don't know if they're going to make a splash quite on that level, but there are some interesting names we'll get into a little bit later.
Benjamin Hunley said, "Why doesn't Ketel get national MVP consideration? No one ever mentions him in that consideration."
Yeah, I mean, he really should. I think as of right now, he's still, I wouldn't say he's the front runner, right? I mean, Shohei Ohtani has a 1028 OPS, and the fact that Ketel's been a really good second baseman and Ohtani hasn't played defense, that gives Ketel an edge, but it's not enough of an edge to make up for 150 points in OPS or whatever that is. But yeah, Ketel is legitimate. I mean, Mookie Betts has spent enough time on the IL at this point that I don't think he's really a legitimate candidate. Christian Yelich has really good numbers with the Brewers, but he also was out for some time this year. I mean, I think it's Ohtani, it's maybe Marcell Ozuna, who's in a similar spot as a DH. Bryce Harper's missed a little bit of time, but is probably still in the conversation. Freddie Freeman is still certainly playing well and has stayed healthy, and Ketel is right in there with all those guys.
I'll say this about Shohei Ohtani is the Dodgers would be fairly mediocre without Shohei Ohtani at this point. You know what I mean? So like it's not a matter of him just being one of the many weapons they have this year. He has been a big reason why they've been able to stay, keep their lead in the NL West and not really drop back. At times their pitching has not been very good, and there's a lot of other, they've had a lot of other problems, but Shohei has been as you would have expected them to be, if not better.
9 days without me. 9 days without me, and we've become a Dodgers podcast. Fucking believable, guys. Yeah.
It's Damon.
I'm sorry.
It's Damon Dog on the ones and twos.
I am sorry. I
Damon,
apologize, chat. This is on me. This is on me because I wasn't there to check these guys, and now they've become.
I don't have the energy. For this,
we love
Jesse.
Shohei.
Really
what a
don't.
great! How good is that guy?
I didn't
Disgusting.
Say, did I say?
Damon, are you saying that Ketel's number one on your MVP ballot right now? Like, what are we doing
he's number
here?
one. He's saying he's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I'm saying let's stop big up in the Dodgers on the PHNX D-back show. Huh?
Yeah, look at
that's fair.
Now he's getting them all agitated at us. That's not going to go well. But we do thank you guys for being here. We don't really thank Damon, but. Fanatics, they kind of became we became a Wrigley Field podcast. There was a big difference there. We showed the Cubs themselves no love at all, but we showed Wrigley Field plenty of love because that place was beautiful. And then we left and downpour. We missed all of that. It was wonderful, but we I'm
disgusted at how much support Damon is getting in the chat right now. I guess I should
a bunch of ball knowers.
No.
A bunch of people that know ball.
No. It's just you placating to the audience and going on an anti-Dodger rant when there was no Dodger love given here. We were simply saying that the Dodgers would be fucking mediocre to shit. Can I say to shit if they didn't have Shohei Ohtani? And that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if I fully agree with that. Yeah, I think the Dodgers would probably still be in a decent spot, but given the injuries that they've walked through recently, Ohtani's been like a 5-WAR player. Yeah, maybe the Dodgers are like 7 or 8 games over 500 without him.
We call this family.
Yeah, I know.
This is what we call family here.
You're a bad person. You're a bad guy. You're a bad guy. And you're a bad guy. But we do thank you guys for being here. Kareem Rodriguez, thank you, said MLB reports LA is all in on Randy Arozarena. Of course they are. They're in on everybody. They're in on Crochet. They're in on everybody. Like I was listening to a thing the other day. That's just the resources that they have, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're in on Tarek Skubal as well. That's another name we've seen floating around with them. But here we go, Derek. Just continuing to talk about the Dodgers. I think we need to change topics.
We'll just change topics
quickly here.
Thank you, Kareem, for your super chat. Thank you guys all for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss whenever our shows go live. And of course, leave us a review or just leave us a like. I forgot. Don't know what I'm doing anymore, and I'm very exhausted right now. It's what 10:30. I should be doing this. I would still be doing this in Chicago time, but leave us a like. We appreciate it when you do. Of course, if you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe over there on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review there. Of course, those 5-star reviews help us out a ton. If you are looking to possibly replace 2 podcast hosts. A great place to check out to do that is at Indeed.com, because if your podcast hosts talk about the Dodgers way too much on a Diamondbacks podcast, you can get better search results by going to Indeed.com and finding and hiring 2 new podcast hosts. The best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. It's to use Indeed.com. Don't search, match with Indeed. Ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And it's not just about connecting with candidates faster. It's about Indeed connecting you with qualified candidates and matching qualifications and preferences that you are looking for the position you're trying to fill. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preference. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners right now of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support this show by saying you heard about us on about Indeed on this podcast.
Why are all your Indeed reads about
replacing
us specifically? It just doesn't seem like a great way to go about your job.
Mostly because you interrupt me while I'm in the middle of reading the thing, right? Like, that's one of the reasons why I would look to replace a co-host. Maybe someone that just let me get through the one line. We've been spending too much time together. But just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed. But that's because, Jesse, that's all we know here. That's all we know. I mean, I could talk about finding a new manager for your baseball team on there, but that's just going to get these people all fired up. As fired up as Torey was yesterday, and we're going to talk about that soon. But, of course, also check out Mint Mobile, because if you want to save a significant amount of money on your mobile service, on your wireless plan, check out Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. You can use your own phone. You can take your own phone number with you. Everything comes over to Mint Mobile. All you have to do is leave behind the overpriced wireless plan. Ditch it with Mint Mobile's limited time deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer deal and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. That's mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right. Well, let's take a look at the count presented by our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union to see how the Diamondbacks won this game. And, of course, they definitely put up some runs tonight, 6-2 over the Kansas City Royals. They out-hit the Royals 8-7. Did a little bit of damage with runners in scoring position, 3 for 8 to the Royals 1 for 4. The Diamondbacks had 3 extra base hits, including Ketel Marte's dinger that almost wasn't a dinger to the Royals 2. And then the Diamondbacks had a 53.8% hard hit percentage to the Royals 35.7%.
Yeah, this was a big bounce back win for the D-backs for sure. Yesterday was an ugly game for them. They showed some fight early. They were able to get out to a lead against.
They showed some fight for sure.
There was quite a bit of fight shown on both sides in yesterday's game. But yeah, it would have been tough. I mean, if the D-backs had come out today and if Montgomery had struggled in his first game back, you're looking at a .500 record and a 3-game losing streak, and pretty much all the other teams that they're in direct contention with in the National League won today. But yeah, the D-backs were able to pull this out. Jordan Montgomery, as we said, was better. Was better in this game for sure. Took a step in the right direction. And the offense did plenty. The offense was able to get on the attack against Alec Marsh right from the jump of this game in that first inning. I thought Gabby Moreno's hit was especially important, making sure the D-backs put up 3 runs in that first inning as opposed to just the one. The one, I think, would have felt like a little bit of a letdown when you had the bases loaded, nobody out. So that was particularly big.
And everybody in the chat right now is talking about Jake's at bat there, his triple, which was absolutely an outstanding at bat.
I think they're talking about his hair more than anything else.
Well, that's also something to be talked about too, because his hair is incredible. Whatever he's doing with his facial hair is amazing. Jake's been awesome. He's great. He's batting .274 with a .749 OPS and deserves to play. It's just hard for Torey to find places and times for him to play. Honestly, I will agree with some of the people that say he deserves more playing time over Corbin, and I agree with that, but I don't know if they're committed to doing that at any point.
It's a fair point. It's a really interesting question. Obviously, the D-backs have shown a lot of patience with Corbin this season. Sure. He showed some positive signs, but he has a 632 OPS, right? I mean, we're about 100 games into the season. Like, Corbin has been not nearly the player that he was last year. The Diamondbacks continue to hit him leadoff pretty much every single day against right-handed pitchers. So, yeah, you feel for Jake McCarthy in a situation like this. I mean, he's done pretty much everything you could possibly ask for him to do, and yet he's still sitting. It feels like 2 out of every 3 out of every 4 games. You know, maybe getting an opportunity late to come in and play some defense or run the bases or whatnot. But the numbers are kind of clear, Derek, that McCarthy has been better than both Corbin Carroll and Alek Thomas, and you can understand the D-backs' belief in those guys and wanting to continue to give them playing time. But I also understand, like, at a certain point, 100 games in, you figure the numbers kind of mean something, and McCarthy still isn't getting all that much playing time.
Elise asks in the chat, how is Corbin still leading off, is my biggest question, and that's a fairly decent question.
Yeah. He's been, I don't have this in front of me, but if you look at his numbers just in like the first at bat of the game, he's actually been very, very good.
Yeah.
And
but then drifts off.
And then it kind of drifts off.
Yeah.
So
1 for 5 today with 3 strikeouts, but he did score that run in the first inning.
Yeah, I think the D-backs are just at a point where they believe in him so much that regardless of what's happened up to this point, they think that he is going to be a valuable performer in that role the rest of the way. And that's really all that matters, is what do you think this player is going to give you moving forward? It doesn't necessarily matter what the player has done up to that point. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, you know, he had a hit in this game, but he also struck out 3 times. The at-bats continue to look a little bit shaky. He showed some good signs in Chicago, hit that big 2-run homer, but it continues to look a little off for him for sure.
It does, but like you said, there's something about Lovullo that he wants to show his belief in guys, and he wants to give them opportunities, and there's different levels of belief, right? There's some guys that get called up from minor leagues, and they might only get 1 opportunity and get sent right back down. That might have been the plan the whole time with that individual. We don't know. It might have been regardless of results. However, we do know that with guys on this team like Gino, right, is a great example. And now we're kind of seeing Gino have some more patient at bats. We've seen him lately kind of hit his way out of that slump that he was in. And it's not like he is, going out there and going 3 for 4 every night or anything crazy like that. But Gino Suarez at least is contributing to this team much more than he was in April and May when he looked like an absolute disaster as far as someone you acquired. So it feels like they know what some of these guys are, and they believe strongly that they can get through this, and that support is a big part of how they'll get through it. There's a lot of things that we as baseball fans don't really understand that sound, I don't know, they sound cliche, they sound hokey, they sound like something from a baseball movie, but it's real stuff. It's real life in that clubhouse. When Torey is in there and he's trying to show guys that are struggling love by giving them those opportunities still and not just immediately benching them because they're struggling, that's part of his process. It might be flawed. It might be antiquated for modern day baseball where you kind of do go with the hot hand at times, or but Torey just has his ways. Like, we joked about the fact that he was going to sit Corbin and Alek the day after they both hit home runs in Chicago, and he did exactly that. He literally did that thing. So, like, that's kind of Torey at times. It's almost predictable how hilariously, how hilariously he's going to manage at times, but it's his method. And as much as at times it frustrates fans and even us maybe alike at times, it's his process that got them to the World Series last year. And that's kind of more of what he's working to, is not trying to give up on someone like Corbin, but trying to get him to get back to where he was last year by the time they reach those playoffs. By the time September comes along, maybe we'll see Corbin, all of a sudden pick up and catch fire. At this point, his season is what it is. Like, a significant portion of the season is behind us, and we haven't seen that big improvement in Corbin Carroll. But I don't think that the belief in him is going to change.
One thing that I think is very valid, a change that the Diamondbacks might consider making, that if I were them, I would maybe make, is Jake McCarthy probably needs to start against every lefty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
The D-backs don't have enough right-handed hitting outfielders to have a full outfield of righties with a lefty on the mound. It's not possible. They just have Grishik and they have Lourdes Gurriel. So if you're going to have at least one of your left-handed hitting outfielders start against lefties, you probably should make it Jake McCarthy, right? I mean, this is a guy who this season is hitting 362, 422, 448 against lefties. He has been way better against lefties than he has against righties this season. Do I expect that to continue? Probably not. Those kinds of things don't generally last. However, Jake does have a history of having pretty even splits, of holding his own against lefties, whereas Alek Thomas has obviously very much struggled with that in the past. And Corbin Carroll, although he held his own against lefties last year, this season he really never has looked right against lefties. There have been some good moments against righties, but he's never really gotten on any kind of run against left-handed pitching. So that's a change that if I were the Diamondbacks, I would probably make.
How many at-bats is that for him versus lefties that he's pushing those
Jake?
numbers? Yeah.
He is 21 for 58. So plate appearances, it's probably like 65 plate appearances.
Okay, and how many does he have against righties?
161 at bats. I don't have the plate appearance.
I mean, I'm not trying to say like he is good against lefties, but it has been a limited sample because they don't play him enough against lefties. So,
but there's
let
also
him go out there and play against lefties. Let him play against lefties, and let's see if that continues. And then if it does, then it's not just a fluke because it's a small sample size. He does have a history of being good against lefties, and I'm cutting you off, but I'm sure that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say like Alek Thomas has a fairly long track record of struggling against lefties, right?
Right.
And Corbin, the at bats this season just have never really looked right, as I said earlier. So, that's a change that I would maybe make. And I understand where people are coming from with maybe you do start Corbin against righties pretty much every day. But does it have to be in the leadoff spot? You maybe want to rework things a little bit and move him down, try to get him going, try to get him on more of an extended run, and then bring him back up to the top.
Going back to what I said, the flip side to that is that you play and you're supposed to be good, and then you're supposed to be given more playing time. And, Jake isn't getting increased playing time, then that's kind of the opposite to supporting him, right? Like that's not allowing him to get in the lineup more. And I think that nobody's really playing significantly better than anyone else except at a couple of positions for them to not try to make the best outfield that they can against different pitching matchups and try to win those margins, right? Like this team right now isn't losing games by a ton when they do lose. They did yesterday. That's a whole other story. But at times they've been losing like they did against the Cubs, very close games where both teams didn't score very much. So it's one of those things that every advantage against, especially an incredible pitcher like Shohei Managa. There I go. I did it again. I heard it. I did. Yeah, this might have been a Cubs podcast. You might be right. But anyway, like again, you go out there and try to give your best because every run counts. And in some cases, these games are very close. So you want to see them doing. You want to see Torey at this point as we get into the stretch, as we get to the trade deadline here, not very far away, and beyond that, we want to see this team starting to put all of this kind of support bullshit in the past and try to win every ball game, like try to put the best lineup out there. And I completely understand that because that's how I feel. Like I feel like these guys are big boys and they understand when they're playing well and they're not playing well. So as much as you do want to support them and show them love the way Torey does, there's also a time where you need to manage this team based on the performances of the guys that are playing well. And those are the guys that deserve to get increased playing time. It's simple as that. But I also am a flip-flopper, as you guys have seen in this entire segment, so I can go either way. I'm a known liar. Jesse's a known liar, and I know because I spent entirely too many days with him. Damon's a goddamn liar. He's a huge liar, and I don't want you people in the chat to believe anything that man says.
I say nothing but facts.
He is a liar. But, of course, we know the numbers never lie. Jesse, hit him with your number today. What do you got?
Going back to Jordan Montgomery, our number is 38.9%. That represents Jordan Montgomery's first pitch strike percentage in this game.
Why are you doing this?
He faced, I believe it was 18 hitters, and he threw first pitch strikes to 7 of them. I am because I don't want to harp on this too much, but Montgomery's command was not particularly great in this game. I think he threw 39% of his pitches in the strike zone, which is a pretty low number. And 38.9% first pitch strikes. I mean, you're always trying to throw a strike on the first pitch, essentially, right? Like, this is an indication that Montgomery's command was not really up to par in this game. And it wasn't just that these counts were starting 1-0, it's that a lot of these counts were starting 2-0 as well. Yeah. He was getting behind guys, and he was finding ways to get outs anyway. But again, there's just a little bit of hesitance for me when it comes to, if anyone wants to declare Jordan Montgomery back after a start like this, I would tap the brakes on that. It's not to say that he couldn't turn things around moving forward. This was a step in the right direction, but I just didn't quite see it all come together today.
Well, and again, give me more outings, and I'll start to believe a bit more in that. And I'm fine with these kind of outings. I'm fine if he can go out there and give up 2 runs or less and give them 6 innings plus, be effective, be efficient, but also not like somebody it's not going to lead the league in any numbers. It's not going to be anything, but at least give me that kind of night. This might have been a little bit more luck than, necessarily him being good, but we'll see in his next outing. Of course, that might be because the Royals are just very tired from hitting the ball as often as they did last night, especially Bobby Witt Jr., who was just one single away from a cycle last night.
He's been outrageous.
We were on an extremely delayed pair of flights to come home from Chicago. D-backs and Royals were hitting each other with baseballs. That was happening. We were getting like little in-between updates from myself and Jacob whenever we had an internet connection. But yeah, you had basically Bobby Witt Jr., who, when he was up after going 3 for 3 with a double, a home run, and a triple, came up in the 6th. Castellanos, who, as we saw in the Cubs game, didn't have very good command, control, or anything, hit him with the first pitch he threw. As you could see from Castellanos' body language, it was not intentional. And I'm sure Royals fans were mad based on, the situation. Like, that's rightfully so. But somehow I don't think a guy that struggled and walked in the winning run just in his last appearance in a game is really to blame, that he was intentionally trying to hit someone like Bobby Witt Jr. And as we know, Torey Lovullo does not do things like that. At least he's very against that. He has said it time and time again. He does not play baseball like that. He doesn't really even retaliate when things like that go that way. But the Royals retaliated in this game, and it was fairly obvious that they absolutely hit Gabby Moreno with a 2-1 pitch on purpose based on the body language of everybody on the Royals, basically, is what I'm basing that on, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. That was Royals reliever John Schreiber, who was on the mound. This was the top of the 7th inning after Humberto Castellanos hit Bobby Witt Jr. in the bottom half of the 6th inning. I'm inclined to believe that Humberto Castellanos did not have any intent there. If you're trying to work around Bobby Witt Jr. in a spot like that, there are other ways to work around him than to just hit him with the baseball. Yeah. And that is just not something that Torey Lovullo has ever really branded himself as. He has never been the type of manager who's going to go out there and really ever try to intentionally hit anyone.
Or as Torey said, ever, as we saw in the replay of that.
Yeah. So obviously Royals fans were not happy in the moment when Witt got hurt. Or when Witt got hit. And then fortunately he didn't really get hurt. He was still able to obviously continue in the game and play today. Everything was okay on that front. Gabby Moreno gets hit in the top of the 7th, and that's when we have this full-on fun incident where there was a bit of a skirmish on the field. And Torey Lovullo, after the fact, was very adamant, as I was saying earlier, that this was not intentional by any means on the part of the Diamondbacks. These are words from Torey, and I quote, "I got ejected by Jordan Baker," who's the home plate umpire. "I never said one thing to Salvador Perez. I love Salvador Perez. I think he's been an unbelievable major league player. I am a huge fan of his. I just wanted him to hear what I was going to say to Jordan. And what I said was, if you think you're in your right mind, that I was going to try to ask my team to hit the future of Major League Baseball, that being Bobby Witt Jr., one of the best players in Major League Baseball. You're crazy. You lost control of this situation, and you got it wrong." So Torey went out there and was, of course, barking at the umpires.
And he was pissed.
and specifically talked to Salvador Perez himself.
Yeah.
He wanted Salvador Perez, who of course is the veteran on the Royals, to know his perspective on this situation. And Torey winds up getting ejected from the game.
Well, and honestly, there's a big part of it there where I loved Torey's, I guess, bar fight energy, right? Where his friends are holding him back and he's like, no, I just want to talk to him. No, I just want to talk to him. Hey, come here, bro. Let me talk to you for a second. Come here, say that shit to my face. Like, there was that energy, but it was also Torey just trying to make it as abundantly clear as possible that he doesn't play baseball that way and that he doesn't find it acceptable at all that the Royals do. And I appreciate Torey's effort on that, because not only does it once again show that support, that love that he has for his players to them, not only to Gabby who got hit, but to every other guy that's watching that and taking that moment in. But it's also Torey kind of like trying to, like, I guess, make people play the game his way, which is like, hey, he got hit, but that was an accident. So what is this retaliation bullshit? And it is ridiculous. It is one of those unwritten rules. Like you said, even Gabby went up there knowing he was going to get hit. Like, Gabby looked like he expected it and was fine with it. There wasn't really any turmoil there on Gabby Moreno's part, despite the fact that Salvador Perez immediately jumped up and got in between him and the pitcher and just showed that body energy that they'd already relayed that information to each other, that they were going, that he was going to run out there, right? Or that he was going to be hit by a pitch and that Gabby might try to run out on the pitcher. See, little do you know, Gabby is not the one to do that. Gabby's a wonderful baby child, and he would never go and fight anybody. But he should, because that was some bullshit. And I would love that Torey did what he did. And I think that, again, it's kind of about setting the tone that when you play the Diamondbacks, that's not how we play baseball.
Yeah, and Matt Quatraro, the manager of the Kansas City Royals, he did take issue with Torey talking with Salvador Perez in particular. He said, the unfortunate part for me is just that it is hard to see another team talking to your players. That is what is the most frustrating thing. I think that's why it got out of hand. And you can understand that. I think you can see Torey's perspective of wanting a guy like Salvador Perez, who's been around, to know his perspective on the situation, talking directly to the players on the other team, maybe a little bit unconventional in a situation like this. But the Royals manager also went on to say that this was not intentional, that they did not hit Gabby Moreno intentionally. He said that Schreiber throws a ton of sinkers, sliders away, sinkers in. We're not trying to hit somebody. We're trying to finish that game. Guys haven't pitched in a week. He's talking about Schreiber, who hadn't pitched in 8 days, of course, because of the All-Star break and whatnot. So he is denying that this was intentional, but as you said, there were maybe some signs in the moment based on body language and whatnot that this was intentional on the Royals' part. It happened pretty much immediately after the D-backs had hit Bobby Witt Jr. So who knows for sure? I personally think all of this is dumb and that we should just move on with our lives.
Schreiber should have been ejected immediately, and that's the way it should have gone. And
that's what Torey
Lovullo
thought,
was right to say, why did you give us both warnings, right? Like, again, something happens in the game, that team hits one of my batters, give that dugout a warning, life moves on. None of this happens. But Torey has to fight for his team sometimes, and he also has to get them fired up. Like, that was a game that they were losing already substantially. So I think Torey was just trying to get some fire into his team, and maybe it worked because they come out tonight and they get the win against the Royals by a score of 6-2. And everybody had a fairly good night. You get a good night from the bullpen offense and Jordan Montgomery. It was a fairly solid all-around win for this team. If you want to experience wins, a great place to do so is with Desert Financial Credit Union. Big thank you to them for sponsoring the count, and big thank you to them for helping Arizona for a long time, more than 84 years. They have been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union. They got me started on my home ownership journey, and hopefully they could get you started as well. They are a team of financial experts who are committed to giving back to their members and the community and offering financial solutions tailored to help real people achieve their financial goals and dreams. So join a credit union that is committed to giving back and helping out as well. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Also, I cannot thank Game Time enough for all of our experiences this past weekend, because at times when I did need those tickets, because we didn't want to go. This guy sits in the press box at the Home Run Derby. We make him do that. He doesn't want to, trust me, especially at Globe Life Field. He's not a fan of that building. But
I might as well have been watching from the moon, Derek.
Absolutely.
That was basically my view.
I could not do that. So I had to go be in the outfield with my gigantic blue glove, catching baseballs. Again, see the blue glove thing. I don't think that fares well for me and the whole Dodger thing. They might be onto something. But I was out there having a great time, and it was all thanks to Game Time, because they were able to provide us with incredible seats, incredible options. Me and Jacob had a fun time playing the game, by the way, walking that tight wire and seeing how cheap tickets could go. And man, we scored some great seats for the Home Run Derby. We scored, I think, $5 tickets for the Futures game. And that was a huge price drop just in like the last hour right before the game started. And of course, if you're willing to wait last minute for those ticket deals, you can save up to 60% off by buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows, theater, and more. They say you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats. And they have these little best value buttons and all sorts of other options that you can see. Of course, you can also see what your view is going to look like from those seats. And that Globe Life Field was very deceptive as far as what section number was what and where you were actually sitting. So it's a great option where you have no idea what the building is that you're going to go into is actually like. They also have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of your ticket price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. As promised, we did say that we need to start looking at some trade deadline targets, because the Arizona Diamondbacks are not too far away from the trade deadline. And we do know, or at least we hope, that this team is going to be buyers. And we hope that they can do some things to maybe alleviate some of the stress the bullpen has been under, at least the high leverage guys that Torey's been relying on so much this season.
Yeah, I wrote my trade deadline primer that came out yesterday. So if you haven't seen that already, be sure to check that out. It kind of gives a broad overview of what the Diamondbacks are thinking going into the deadline. I had an opportunity to talk with Mike Hazen while we were in Chicago. So check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, the general gist of it is that we do expect the Diamondbacks to be buyers as we record this right now. They are one game out of the playoff picture in the National League. There is not an insurmountable, overwhelming number of teams in front of them. And they're very much in the thick of this playoff race. They're not in nearly as good a position as maybe we expected them to be at this stage of the season, but they are still very much in position to make a run in the second half. So that means, Derek, that we have reached the point of the year where we are going to roll up our sleeves and speculate about who the Diamondbacks might trade for. And the first name is one that has certainly been out there in the ether. We are not the first ones to suggest this, but it's maybe the most obvious one. So we figured we might as well start with left-handed pitcher Tanner Scott of the Miami Marlins.
Very happy.
Jacob is probably very happy to see this. On the season, we've got Scott's numbers. He has gone 43 and 2/3 innings. He has a 1.24 ERA, a 0.98 whip, 10.3 Ks per nine, 5.2 walks per nine. His FIP is a little bit higher than his ERA at 3.26, significantly higher than his ERA at 3.26, I should say. But he has still been very good for the Marlins this year. 17 for 19 in save opportunities. He's been their closer. He is a lefty. We've talked a lot about how Joe Mantiply is the only left-handed pitcher on this roster right now. I guess he's one of two now that Jordan Montgomery's back. But he's the only left-handed reliever on this roster right now, and it could make sense for the D-backs to add someone to kind of help him out in that role. So Tanner Scott, Derek, how do we feel about this?
I think his numbers are very, very sexy. And I think, like Piece of Yoshi says, a lefty is a lefty. And at this point, I feel like Torey Lovullo needs options. I'm not saying this to discredit Joe Mantiply, but Torey didn't believe in Joe Mantiply enough to leave him in that game in Chicago.
Yeah, that's a pretty valid point.
And I don't care about matchups, but I felt like Torey going into that inning should have known, no matter what, that whoever he went with it could be like a closer situation, that you're going to need to send him out there and you're going to need to have him finish that inning. So I don't know. I mean, maybe Torey was going to Castellanos to maybe, get out of it and then give him some length beyond that. I don't really know what the plan was, but obviously it feels to me there like the belief isn't there in Mantiply. So bringing in another lefty just gives Torey that option and allows him to, have more weapons in the bullpen at this point. I think that is really the key for this team, especially considering that starting pitching really isn't something that they need to address. I know Yilber Diaz finally came back down to reality yesterday against the Royals, but the Diamondbacks still have options at starting pitching once the full slate comes back. So if something goes wrong, the Diamondbacks do have an ability to maybe pivot away from a guy that's struggling or whatever. But the starting pitching situation seems solidified. So I really think their biggest weakness right now has been, like what we saw today. Again, not to knock Ginkel, but it just seems like late in games, the Diamondbacks just don't make things easy. They always make it exciting, even if it's just a little exciting, even if it's just a few guys getting on base, even if it's just, a run being added here and making you sweat a little bit like I am sweating now being back in Phoenix, Arizona. But this team needs options. Torey needs options in the bullpen.
Yeah, a few more notes on Tanner Scott. People are wondering, what would this cost? We did not do what we did many times for trade candidates last year, which was to come up with a hypothetical trade. Maybe we'll do that with some more in the coming days, but it was always sort of a miserable exercise trying to put that together. But the short answer is that it would cost a lot. Tanner Scott is maybe the most highly sought after reliever at the deadline. I mean, a lefty with an ERA of 1.24. He started the year a little slow. The walk numbers were crazy. His walk numbers are still a little high, but he's really gotten that under control here for the last couple of months. He is going to be highly sought after around the league. Jeff Passan wrote in his trade deadline preview today that Tanner Scott is certainly gone. Those were Passan's words. He is a free agent at the end of the year, so you're just looking at getting him for a couple of months, plus a potential postseason run. So it's going to cost a lot because I'm not sure there's anyone out there on the market who has the swing and miss ability, the ability, the experience of closing games as well. So a lot of teams are going to want this guy, and the Diamondbacks are going to have to pay a heavy price because of that.
He's an all-star, so that doesn't make it any easier, especially as a reliever. We've talked in the past about how difficult it is to make an all-star team as a reliever.
Yeah.
You also have the fact that he is the free agent after, the end of this year. So, that, like Jeff Passan said, they're going to move on from him. He's certainly gone at the deadline. I don't know if the Diamondbacks might be willing to give up as much as it's going to take to get him, potentially. I think that's the biggest key. They don't really want to mortgage their future here, nor do they really want to trade away any valuable pieces that's on this team right now that's helping this team win. Can we interest you in one Miguel Castro?
Probably not. The Miami Marlins are not. They're not a team that's likely to be looking for like ultra major league ready talent. I wouldn't think, at least relative to other teams. The Marlins are kind of in a rebuilding phase right now. So you could see a scenario where the D-backs could trade some prospects rather than having to trade off the major league team in order to pull off a deal like this. Scott is making $5.7 million this year. So on a prorated basis for the rest of the year, it's about $2 million. So from a financial standpoint, you're in decent territory there. Couple people mentioned Mason Miller's name. Yes, Mason Miller is certainly, I'm sure, a more highly coveted reliever than Tanner Scott.
We'll get to him. But we'll fantasize about him
later. But
we have
Mason Miller is going to be way more difficult to acquire because he's not on an expiring contract. Tanner Scott is, if I'm a team looking for back-end relief help, I'm a lot more comfortable trying to make a run at Tanner Scott than Mason Miller, knowing the kind of cost that's gonna be in place there.
Rudy Barron in the chat says a rental should not cost as much. I mean, in theory, yes, but I think they know that they're going to get a lot of suitors. They have a lot of leverage.
Yeah,
there's a lot of teams interested right now in competing here at the trade deadline. There's going to be a lot of teams that aren't really close that think they still have a shot. So there's going to be a lot of interest in a lefty with these kind of numbers. Another guy that we were looking at is Kyle Finnegan from the Washington Nationals. He's not a lefty. He's a righty. He probably isn't going to cost nearly as much as Tanner Scott, but he has had himself a very, very good season. Let's take a look at his numbers so far this year. He has 42.2 innings pitched. In relief, he is a 2.32 ERA, a 0.98 whip, 9.3 strikeouts per nine, 3.0 walks per nine, and then a 3.90 FIP. Pretty good numbers.
Yeah, pretty good numbers for sure. The biggest, I guess there's a few big distinctions, one being that Finnegan is a righty as opposed to a lefty. The other being that well, yeah, both of them have closing experience. Both of them have closed games this year. But Kyle Finnegan has another year of control. So if you trade for Kyle Finnegan, you're not just getting the rest of 2024, you're also getting 2025 as well. And for the Diamondbacks, that could be appealing given that Paul Sewald is a free agent at the end of the year. Right. Last season, the D-backs were in a situation where they needed a closer for the rest of the year and also the following year. And they're kind of in a similar situation now. I guess they've got Kevin Ginkel. They've got other options that they could go to next year, but maybe they'd rather just trade for Kyle Finnegan and have him, pitch in the back end this year and then maybe take over as the closer next season. But yeah, he's been really good for the Nationals this year. I'm not sure he's viewed quite on the same level as Tanner Scott in terms of just kind of the dominance of his swing and miss stuff. Last year, Finnegan had a 3.76 ERA with the Nationals. The year before, 3.51. The year before that, 3.55. So he's been a steady reliever, but he's not necessarily been like a low 2 ERA guy all that consistently. His FIP, as we showed there, is 3.90 this year, so quite a bit higher than his ERA. But yeah, certainly could make some sense for the Diamondbacks if they wanted to find someone who would also be back with them for 2025.
Well, and it's interesting because Jeff Passan said that the Washington Nationals are basically out. And they are not part of the group that is actually out, in my opinion. That's only been two teams in the National League up to this point. It's been the Rockies and the Marlins. And to be fair, the Rockies have been playing some better baseball lately. So I'm not saying they're going to catch up, but the Nationals are not part of that group. They are 5.5 games out of the final wild card spot. So that, I just feel, is kind of an example of how teams are thinking when there are that many teams between them and the wild card spot. Because yes, they're only 5.5 games back, but there is the Giants, the Reds, the Cubs, the Pirates, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Mets all between them and that final wild card spot. So there comes a point where you have to start realistically looking at the future of your team and not necessarily what's going on right now. With the trade deadline being so active, with so many teams so close, there's a chance for teams to walk away with a huge bounty for trading away some of these players. So it's understandable. It was just a little surprising to hear because I wouldn't expect that from any of these teams just yet. I mean, who knows if they go on some crazy run over the next week and then they find themselves, a little bit closer, and that's how close these teams are right now. Yeah,
it's a fair point. The Nationals have been talking about selling for quite a while. I remember when the D-backs played the Nationals, we were talking with some people who cover the Nationals, and they were like, yeah, the Nationals are probably going to sell, and that was weeks ago. So maybe a little surprising, the approach that they've taken and kind of been in on for a while, but it certainly looks like they're going to sell. And Finnegan, maybe not a guarantee to be traded like Tanner Scott, given that he does have another year of control. It wouldn't totally shock me if the Nationals decided to just hold on to him if they don't get the price that they're looking for. One other point I want to make here is that, as we were saying earlier, Finnegan is a righty, and you might be asking, like, why would the Diamondbacks want a righty? They already have Ginkel and Sewald and Thompson and Justin Martinez. I asked Mike Hazen in Chicago if he had a preference between a left-handed reliever or a right-handed reliever, and he very simply said he does not have a preference. That he, anyone the Diamondbacks get, he said they want to be able to get outs in the 7th inning or later. They're looking for someone who can pitch in the back end. They're looking for someone who can get left-handed hitters out. But at the same time, I was surprised to discover that Kevin Ginkel, Paul Sewald, Justin Martinez, and Ryan Thompson, all 4 righties at the back end of this bullpen, have been better against lefties this season than righties. Every single one of them has reverse splits. And so from that standpoint, you can kind of, I mean, again, I don't know if that's going to be sustainable necessarily, but a back-end reliever is a back-end reliever. It's someone that you should be able to trust to get both lefties and righties out. That appears to be the approach the D-backs are taking, and that's why we're going to be talking not just about left-handed relievers. We're going to be talking about some right-handed guys too.
Well, we have lots of guys that we're going to talk about in the next few days, and of course, we have 1 week between now and the end of that trade deadline. So make sure to keep it locked right here. We're going to be bringing you shows all the way through Saturday. We were hoping to catch Paul Skeens Day, but apparently the Diamondbacks are going to miss Paul Skeens.
They will miss Paul Skeens.
In the 3-game set against the Pirates. So I guess good news for the Diamondbacks and bad news for people that love baseball. But again, we will be here through Saturday, so make sure to join us. On Thursday, we're going to have ourselves a special guest. We'll tease that now, but we'll let you guys know who that's going to be. But make sure to join us on Thursday for 1 p.m. show. We got post-game shows the rest of the week. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at @cap_caveman with a K. You can follow Jesse at Jesse and Friedman. You can hit the like button and hold the line at the same time by following Damon Dog. Of course, that's the important one. That's the one you guys all want to follow. He's at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. And we are once again, and we are permanently Damon's Dogs.
Bark, bark.
Our show is at PHNX_D-backs, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate your time so much. We thank you guys for stopping by. We'll see you tomorrow night for another post-game show, I guess the post-series show. But in the meantime, Kareem, thank you again. Kareem sent another super chat. We appreciate you, bro. He said, super chat, $1.99. Love the show, boys. I watch you guys and Bo and Johnny. We appreciate it. Obviously a Damon fan.
Yeah, clear Damon fan.
I was just about to apologize.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, man. You get a lot of me in your life.
Kareem isn't here for us. He's clearly just here for Damon.
Here.
Well, we appreciate him putting up with us in the process.
I appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to Jacob, by the way, because Jacob put up with us quite a bit, and that is not an easy task to do, as Damon can attest to, that he does it on a nightly basis. But he also doesn't have to sleep in a bed with me after we do the show like Jacob had to. So shout out to Jacob Franklin
here tonight. Like, it was the full PHNX D-backs experience. It was it was classic Jesse pushing back on boundaries. It was
me and
Derek
are
going
fighting
on rants,
fighting and ranting. It's been a great
cursing
night.
All over the place.
We're back,
it was
baby.
awesome. We're really back.
Well, of course, we thank you guys again so much. We will see you tomorrow night. And in the meantime, have yourselves a wonderful evening. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when Jordan Montgomery doesn't become the next Madison Bumgarner.
We all silly like the mayor.